I think we can now start. Mohit,
I
it's already
think
12:05.
we can start.
Okay, hi everyone. Good afternoon. Once again, welcome to this 15th session of weekly knowledge series started by Anivesh on indirect taxation. Today's session will be taken care by me, CA Ayush Agrawal. Along with me is my co-host, CA Mohit Gupta. The format of the session is same as the prior formats. For the first half an hour, we will be discussing some recent case laws and recent updates. And for the next half an hour, we will be taking the queries of all the participants. To start with, let me just take up the first case law that I would like to discuss with you all over here. Very interesting case law of Karnataka High Court in the case of Messrs. Blue Technology Private Limited versus this additional director. The facts are such that the Messrs. Blue Technology Private Limited owns one e-commerce platform by the name of Udan.com, www.udan.com. So what this platform does is it lists various suppliers on its platform, and we as customers can go to that platform and purchase various goods and or avail any kind of services from that platform, just like any other e-commerce platform. How this platform is different from others like Amazon or Flipkart is that this platform, Udan.com, does not collect any money from you directly on behalf of the suppliers. So they have another service providers listed on its platform from which, see, if I am one supplier who wants to sell my products through Udan.com, Udan has certain service providers also on that platform only who will collect money on my behalf, who will provide logistic services on my behalf, and everything will be taken care by those separate entities or separate suppliers. Or High Blue Technologies Private Limited will not provide any kind of services other than its platform in this case. Or even if you are not comfortable with the vendors registered on the Udan.com portal, you are not satisfied in availing their services, such as payment collection or other things, you can easily bring on any other third service provider who can collect payment on your behalf, who can provide logistic services on your behalf, and everything can be done. So, High Blue Technologies Private Limited, who owns this portal, Udan.com, only has the portal where you can list your goods or services. It does not collect any payment on your behalf. It does not collect or provides any other services on your behalf to any of the customers or to you as well. So department issued a show cause notice in this case saying that TCS has not been collected by the Udan, that's High Blue Technologies Private Limited on the various amounts collected from the customers, and entire amount has been passed on to the suppliers. Although no amount has been collected by the High Blue directly, but the contention or the allegations of the department are that TCS has not been deposited by the High Blue, that is this portal Udan.com. So there is one specific ratio that I want to discuss. That's why I picked up this judgment. Is one argument that took is correct, and everyone can guess that since I have not collected any amount, circular number 194 or section number 52, mandates only when I collect any amount on behalf of the supplier, then only I will collect also the TCS and will deduct the TCS amount and pay the entire amount to the supplier. And then I will pay TCS to the government, and then entire process follows. Since in this case, I have not collected any amount any amount from the supplier, therefore, I am not also liable to collect any TCS or deposit the TCS with the government. This was the one of the argument that was taken, and it is the correct argument because circular number 194 clearly says that TCS liability, or even section 52 clearly says that TCS liability is attracted, or the provisions of section 52 are attracted only when the supplier collects that is the e-commerce operator collects the payment on behalf of the various suppliers that are listed on its platform. One more interesting argument that was taken in this case is this: the show cause notice was issued under section 74 of the GST Act. Section 74, as we all know, that is related to fraud, willful misstatement, etc., etc. The argument that was taken by the petitioner in this case and was accepted by the High Court was that Section 74, or maybe I can say for Section 73 also in this case, is that it is applicable for any tax that has not been paid or short paid by reasons of fraud and etc., 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 etc. So this Section 74 or Section 73 is applicable on the person chargeable to tax. Section 52 mandates, even though mandates me to collect TCS, but I am not the person chargeable to tax. That is, that e-commerce platform is not the person chargeable to tax. Therefore, the show cause notice cannot be issued under Section 74 of the GST Act. Even not only this, I'll just read one para of this judgment, para 10.4, very important para. The impugned SCN also fails to consider and appreciate that there is no provision in the CGST or the KGST Act to treat the petitioner as an assessee in default, under which the person responsible for collecting tax becomes liable to pay tax, which is the liability of the supplier of goods or services. Not only this, the High Court in this case also referred to Section 201 of the Income Tax Act, and they said that, for example, in the case of income tax, Section 201 of the Income Tax Act, which provides for the legal fiction under which a person responsible for deducting tax, an assessee in default, and is liable to pay tax not deducted. So they have clearly said that, as in the Income Tax Act, there is a deeming fiction that if I am not deducted the correct amount of TDS, or I have not deducted the TDS, there is a deeming fiction of assessee in default under Section 201. There is no such provision under the CGST Act or the KGST Act, which makes me the person assessee in default, or I am the person chargeable to tax. Therefore, Section 74 is at all not applicable in this case. So, according to me, is a very that's a ratio, or the judgment is very good, and for all these cases, we can always use this judgment, that where Section 74 or 73 has been invoked under Section 50 for the liability under Section 51 or 52. Do you have any comments on this?
I think certainly it is a very, very interesting judgment. So that reminds me of another case we had a few years back. So that was regarding Tran 1 credit. So there was one advance ruling application. The assessee went to advance ruling regarding some Tran 1 ITC matter. So the authority denied admission of that advance ruling itself, saying that we can only take question on input tax credit. And if you see the definition of input tax credit, it only means credit of tax charged on input goods and services purchased by a business.
Correct.
Tran 1 credit is not input tax credit, because Tran 1 credit is not basically it is not GST amount charged on any input services or inputs received by a taxable person. So basis that we developed a similar argument that section 73 and 74 empowers government to raise demand in case of short availment, excess availment or utilization of input tax credit. So even there, the section 73 and 74 is not empowering the government to raise a show cause notice itself in that Tran 1 matter. Although that matter is currently sub judice, so there was no decision, there is no decision yet in that case. But I think that that means that if we see this whole schema of 73, 74, in a lot of places the government has committed some or other drafting issue, because this is a drafting lacuna for which the benefit has been taken by the assessees council in this particular case. But yes, if coming to the merit of the case, I think this is a very, very good argument that if I am not the assessee chargeable to tax, the department cannot demand tax from me. They have to go to the person chargeable to tax, which is the supplier, and supplier has not committed any default because the responsibility was mine. So that lacuna is there in GST law.
Absolutely. And by taking the example of the Income Tax Act, that there is a deeming fiction in the Income Tax Act, so a similar deeming fiction could be created under this act. So it clearly establishes that Section 74 or even Section 73 is not applicable. Forget about that whether there was any fraud, willful misstatement or not. I'm saying Section 73 is also on the same wording, so it will also be not applicable.
Correct. Correct. So, I'll take up the next judgment. So, next judgment is given in the case of Samsung Electronics by CSTAT Allahabad. So, they have covered a lot many topics. So, even though judgment itself is not very unique, but it has some very interesting ratios. So, I'll discuss them one by one. So Ayush, maybe one by one I am discussing. So every after conclusion of every point, if you have any comments, then you can give.
Sure.
So first is a rather simple ratio that what the assessor did is they imported some goods and they made some foreign payments against that import of goods. But in books of accounts, uh, in accounting they showed it as payment for some advertisement and sales promotion charges. But in actual, there were no services received by the importer. That was only import of goods. So, basis this description only, the government, the GST department raised a demand, service tax department raised a demand under reverse charge mechanism. So CSTAT held that merely because of accounting treatment, you cannot raise a demand. You have to see the actual transaction. So you have to show that the assessee actually received some services. Without that, you cannot raise any demand on the assessee. So I think larger principle again is same that uh, just because there is some discrepancy in book mistake in books of accounts cannot automatically mean DST department can raise demand on you. But you should be careful when you are doing accounting of some GST transactions.
Correct, correct. Similarly, when we see that any accounting expense is booked under the head of legal or professional expenses, so department does nothing and says that since it is a legal expense, RCM is applicable. And there are many more judgments that GST or service tax or RCM liability is applicable only when the provisions, what are the provisions, say section 9394, whatever is written in that notification of the provisions, if those conditions are satisfied, then only you can say that the RCM is applicable. Merely just recording any entry in the books of accounts, it may be wrong, it may be right. Yes, wrongly it was recorded, cannot attract any liability.
Even the issue is some next issue is also something on similar lines. So next issue, what SSA did is they booked a provision entry for booking some expenses. There also the department created some demand. So provision, as all of us know, provision is only booked to match with that accounting accrual concept. That expenses of 1 year should match with the income of 1 year. So provisions are typically booked at the end of the year. They are reversed immediately at the start of new financial year, and actual invoices are booked in next year. So there also CSTAT held that merely these provision entries are accounting entries. They are not receipt of services. So on those accounting entries also you cannot raise any demand.
Right, right, right. I mean, we have not many judgments on this point also.
It is a very well
Very well.
settled principle. Then third issue, again, very, very simple, that there were some events and accommodation services held outside India. So they held that place of provision of service outside India, no tax. So I'm not going into detail into this. Uh, Reimbursement of expenses was also held to be outside tax because department was telling that the reimbursement of expenses is provision of business auxiliary service. That was also held to be non-taxable. Fifth issue is very interesting. So there were some payments made by the assessee, again, foreign payments made to some foreign parties, but there was no nature of service given by the assessee. So these were recorded as a miscellaneous payment. So what department did is they saw that some payment has been made. It has been made to a foreign party. So they assume that it is an import of service and they charge tax under reverse charge and raised a demand. CSTAT held that you cannot raise service tax until and unless you identify the service. So even if we go a little further back in service tax, So before 2012, in service tax, we used to have positive list regime, which means that there were 119 categories, specific categories mentioned in service tax law. Only on those categories you had to pay tax. So it was mandatory for department whenever they were raising any show cause notice, issuing any show cause notice, that they had to mention the category of service on which they are under which they are raising the demand. Then negative list came in 2012, so the concept changed that you have to pay tax on all the service except the services given in the negative list. Similar concept has been carried forward in GST regime, but there have been many judgments in negative list regime also, that even though there is a blanket chargeability of tax on all the services, but still, when department is issuing a show cause notice, they have to identify the service on which tax has to be paid. So we have seen many cases in service tax as well as GST regime. One very common example is 26 AS versus GST return or service tax demand. So department comes and says that there is 1,000 rupees coming in your 26 AS, 800 rupees coming in your service tax return or GST return. There is a gap of 200 rupees. That is your income. I will raise GST demand on this much amount. So there has been many judgment wherein they have gone with a very basic principle that how can you raise demand on that 200 rupees? First, you have to check whether there is any actual income or not, whether there is any actual supply or not. And in GST, we have multiple rates. So even if you say that this is a supply, what service and what goods? Because until and unless you know the nature of goods or service, how will you determine the tax rate applicable? How will you determine the place of supply applicable? How will you determine the HSN code applicable? So all those things can only be checked when you identify the nature of service. So it is a somewhat in service tax, it was a very settled principle. In GST, there are not many judgments yet, but I believe the judgments of service tax will be squarely applicable in GST as well. So GST department, whenever they are raising any demand, they have to, it is mandatory for them to identify the nature of service or goods. And by nature, I mean at least the HSN code should be there. Without giving the specific HSN code, they cannot raise any demand. So any sort of blanket demands between GSTR 1 and 3B, 26 AS and 3B, e-way bill and GSTR 1, all these kind of blanket demands which are issued by department in many cases, these demands are not valid at all. So Ayush, your comments?
Correct. I think there was a judgment in the. There are many judgment. One of them I remember was a I think of Akbar Travels. The principle laid down in all the judgment is same, that you have to identify the nature of service, the recipient of the service, and the rate of tax applicable. If I talk about the service tax regime, pre-GST regime. Similarly, the same concepts applies to the GST regime as well. HSN, the goods on the recipient to whom the services or the goods has been supplied has to be identified by the department, and the burden of proof is again on the department only, that what are the activities or what are the supplies that I have done for the recipient of that supply. Until and unless that are identified by the department, no demand can be confirmed on any ground whatsoever. So,
Ayush, I have a question on this.
hmm.
Ayush and Mohit, how do you see these judgments and the provision of 7512, if I remember correctly, which says if there is a self-assessed tax and it is not paid, so it should be recovered directly under 79. Although there is an instruction and circular from the CBIC that this should be seen on case-to-case basis. Plus, when the portal is locked for editing and all, when you have declared something in GSTR on by mistake, let's say you have put extra zero or something like that, or if there is a genuine demand, or genuine case also, how do you see these judgment in light of those provisions?
So my position on this provision has been very clear on day one, that this provision is completely unconstitutional and ultra vires CDST Act also, because the basic principle of any taxation law is you have to go as per the charging provision. We have a charging provision in CDST Act, Section 9, which says that there is a tax called CDST or IDST, which is leviable on interstate supply of tax. So when there is a provision which says that any amount you have put in GSTR1, so let's say you have put in 1,000 rupees in GSTR1, whether in B2B category, whether in B2C categories without any specific recipient, or even in B2B, wherein you have mentioned some GST number of some person. but that is not your actual supply. You have not paid tax on that amount in 3B. That amount is not coming in your financial statements. That amount has not been received in your bank statement. Uh, if you see the contract with your customer, that also clearly says that the amount which you have shown in your bank account and your financial is correct. So it is very clear that there is a mistake in GSTR 1. So there is no authority under CGST Act. Section 75 cannot automatically give a presumption that you can assume it to be a self-assessed tax and you can directly recover. In my view, even show cause notice cannot be issued on this basis only, that you have shown in GSTR 1, that is why, and you have not paid in 3B, so there is a difference. Unless and until GST department proves that this is actually a supply which satisfy the condition of Section 9 of CGST Act, tax cannot be demanded from the assessee.
Correct. I think there was one judgment also recently, not on the aspect of whether it is constitutional or unconstitutional, but on the same aspect that the show cause notice, no, sorry, a recovery notice was directly issued under considering the provisions of Section 7512, and the demand was directly getting, department issued recovery notice under Section 79. So High Court very peculiarly said that without, acknowledging, without giving the opportunity of hearing to the to the taxpayer, and without acknowledging its submissions, and verifying further that whatever the supplier is saying is correct or not, you cannot directly recover a demand under Section 79. A show cause notice has to be mandatorily issued. There was one judgment, I think I also discussed this in this 2 3 weeks back also. I don't remember its name. I'll share it with, if I find it. Gopal, you remember that there was a judgment?
Ayush, I do remember there are judgments, but in fact there was earlier judgment of I think Mahadev Construction Jharkhand High Court, where they were talking about the interest, that even though interest is automatic,
Correct.
it should be adjudicated.
Correct.
But the point is, ki, like we are saying, if the show cause notice is issued merely on the basis that without identifying, because as per GST law, except the case of Section 155, entire burden is on the revenue. Now in GSTR 1 against the invoices, we are not giving the details of HSN, we are not giving the details of the nature of goods, etc. Invoice level pe we are not giving. So if the show cause notice is issued asking us for the details, we will only as a representative of taxpayer, we will litigate that show cause notice is not clear, it is vague, because the burden of proof has not been discharged. So what is the recourse? Matlab, I'm just trying to see it how the department can, let's say there's a genuine demand. I have not paid tax on some invoice, but how will department justify if they don't have the details? How will they discharge their burden of proof? Can they go for, should they go for individual level pay? Month on month, they have to ask for data that you give me your documents or books of accounts. Then only I'll verify whether it's actually a supply or not.
See, by directly issuing show cause notice is the case that the department has built up on the basis of all the documents that it has.
Correct.
Correct. Show cause notice is not something that you give me the information and then I will adjudicate it on the basis of that information, whatever you have given. So, in case department wants to collect any information, see there is a clear difference between my 1 and 3B, which is also visible to the department on their portal. There are various methods by which they can collect information from me. They can issue even a simple notice. Even a range officer can issue a summon under Section 70 to me, asking why come and explain why there is a difference, or any other method they can adopt. Section 65 audit is also there. A simple notice asking for information is also there. There are many other methods. Directly taking a recourse to show cause notice, because when direct recourse to show cause notice is taken only when there's no time available with the department to first investigate the matter and then issue a show cause notice. So directly issuing a show cause notice in this case is totally, we can obviously defend that on the basis of vagueness. Even if there is an order on the basis of the information given by us, we can always say that it is allegations are not matching with the findings are not matching with the allegations. So apart from the show cause notice, there are various other methods from which the department can gather the information, and they should adopt that.
Right.
Show cause notice is not an instrument to collect data. Show cause
Correct.
notice is the final document. You have collected the data, now you build your case. That is the purpose for which show cause notice has to be issued by the department.
Vrindavan Beverages is very clear on that.
But even in a lot of cases, we have seen for ASMT 10, the department have started asking information in ASMT 10 in many cases, even though
They
the
are
provision
starting
is
right
very
from the
clear.
starting. Yeah. They are asking right from the starting in the ASMT 10. They
The provision
one
has
or
been
two
very
points.
clear that ASMT
In
10 you
AS
can only raise
in
demand
A
on the
in
basis of
ASMT
information already collected.
in ASMT 10 I have seen recently that they are asking directors details,
Yes, directors
which is
26 they are asking.
not even in the GST law. They are
I know.
asking director details from the Companies Act perspective.
In one of my cases from Noida, they asked for directors 26 years.
Right.
So, so 2, 3 points are basically related to the mismatch, and all other 10, 11 points they ask for information in ASMT 10, which is also not correct.
Right.
That is why, as a professional, we have to be very particular with the provisions also. Because our default attitude, I have seen in many cases as a professional, our attitude is we should fully cooperate with the tax department. If they are asking for any information, we should give. So I'm not saying that we should not give information, but it is our responsibility. We also have to check the provisions and what are the obligations. Department also has the responsibility to ask information under correct provisions. So if there is a specific provision for asking information, department should issue a document under that provision only. They cannot go in and they cannot go under any provision and do anything.
Oh, Mohit, on your point that the tax professional should be very well versed with the provisions, I have one very interesting query, and I will discuss that query after I will discuss this one case law because that is based on this case law only. So first I'll discuss the case law, then I'll discuss I'll ask my query, and this query is open to all the participants, whosoever are there in the meeting. See, the judgment that I'm discussing is in the case of Manoj Kumar, proprietor of Messrs. Sai Traders versus the state of Uttar Pradesh, Allahabad High Court judgment. It is not a new judgment. There are many various judgments on this issue that what is the effective communication of an show cause notice on an order. There was Bombino Traders, there is Associate Metal, Associate Molasses Transport Company Limited. In this case also, show cause notice was issued, petitioner did not reply. Order was issued. Petitioner filed a appeal after a gap of an year or so, saying that the date of communication of notice is today, and they filed within the 3 months. They are saying that see, order was issued in 2023, uploaded in 23. Petitioner got to know about the order in 2024, and when they got to know about the order, they filed the appeal within the 3 months period. And there is a provision under APL, column under APL 12, APL 01, where we have to write the date of communication of order. So they wrote 2024 only, not 2023. Now, the department rejected the appeal, saying that it is time barred since the order's date is 2023 and the appeal has been filed in 2024. Petitioner correctly relying on the judgment of Bobino Agro Industries and Associate Molasses Transport Company said that effective communication of order is 2024, since yes, the order was uploaded on the portal in 2023, but I did not download it from the portal. I was not aware of it. Therefore, when I got to know about the this that order has been uploaded on the portal, I downloaded it and I filed an appeal. Recently, also, there is a change in the GST portal where the additional notices tab has been merged with the view notices tab only. And I have got to know that now department has introduced their functionality in the background only, that as and when I download any notice or any order from the portal that is being uploaded by them, they will get a notification, or they will get to know that when I have downloaded that in SCN or order. Now, in the year 2023 on the 2025, in the year 2025, that facility was not available. There was two tabs: view notices order tabs and view additional notices order tabs. In whatsoever the tab the notice was uploaded, it was not in the knowledge of the petitioner. Petitioner argued the case, and the Allahabad High Court, on the basis of the judgment of Bombino Agro Industries and Associate Molasses Transport Company, so clearly held that the effective date of communication of notice is when the that order has been downloaded. Now, I want to discuss this one specific provision, or sorry, specific uh, line or the ratio, maybe I can say observation made by the Allahabad High Court in the case of Bombino Agro Industries. in which I'll read it if it is available. Uh, Correct. Just a second. So it not so what this judgment or the one specific line that is or observation made by High Court was that the effective date of communication of the order will be considered as the date as a right in my APL 01. As I say, see if I am the taxpayer, I am filing any appeal, and whatever the date I write as the effective date of communication in APL 01, that will be considered as the date of communication of the order until and unless department proves the otherwise. So the burden of proof is always on the department to say that the effective date of communication of the order is not what the assessee is saying, but in fact it is much earlier. That burden of proof is on the department. That the Allahabad High Court has clearly said. So first of all, coming to the judgment, there are many more other judgments like this only, as two of them I discussed, and there are other judgments as well. And under the income tax also there are judgments which says what should be the effective date of communication of order. Now, one specific query that I would like to ask everyone over here is, one of my client got one order uploaded on the portal again in 2023. There was a rift among the directors, and there was a rift among the directors, so they were not aware that any of those orders has been uploaded the portal functionality, or they were not accessing the portal at all. So as and when the rift got over, there was a solution among them, and the directors were changed. MCA, no, change of directorship was filed on the MCA portal, and everything was done. When GST portal was accessed, they got to know about this order in 2024, and they filed an appeal. Some consultant or the department, or maybe the taxpayer directly filed an appeal. What they did in was they wrote the date of communication of an order as 2023 only, and they filed an application for condonation of delay along with that appeal. Clearly, the first appellate authority rejected that appeal on the basis of in APL 02 only, on the basis that appeal has been filed late, that is beyond a period of 120 days, 3 months plus 30 days. So 3 months plus 1 month. So APL appeal was rejected. My point is, now in the tribunal, or say if I go directly to the High Court, can I take this ground that the effective date of communication of order is 2024 only, based on the documents such as MCA portals, change in directorship that I have filed? I can give that as a proof, or any other proof that I gave, and I can substantiate a date is effective date of communication of order is basically 2024, or is still the burden of proof lies with the department only in this case, and merely by saying that I have received this order in 2024 will suffice. We have to keep in mind that in APL 01, I have already said that I have received the order in 2023, and I filed an application for condonation of delay. Mohit, you are on mute, I think.
I think that is why when someone approaches us with a time-barred appeal, so and a lot of time they are in a hurry that first let us file the appeal. So we tell in every case that wait, because these time-barred appeals are very, very tricky, because there are different provisions of law, and uh, there are many nuances to it, like Ayush has just discussed. So, in my view, see, has already admitted that the date of communication of appeal was the same date of appeal. So, if order was of 2023, the assessee has admitted that date of communication is also 2023, then it will not be possible for the assessor to get in condonation for more than 1 month, because statutorily only 1 month condonation can be given. But having said that, uh, just writing a date of communication of appeal in APL 01 also should not amount to admittance, because there also it is a possibility that mistake can be made. So either the client himself has filed the appeal, or even if some professional has filed the appeal, the assessee can definitely argue that they wrote that date of communication by mistake. They actually downloaded the order on later on, and within when they downloaded the order, from that date they have filed within the allowed time limit. I think that ground should be available. And obviously, where the assessee is later
Okay,
on
so again, we are
downloaded,
saying
then
that whatever, see, Bombino Agro clearly says that whatever the date I write in that APL 01 should be considered as the effective date of communication of order unless the department proves otherwise. So burden of proof is on the department, right? Now, I have clearly written in my APL 01 that it is 2023. I am saying that it has been written, it was a mistake. I was not aware and I downloaded the order in 2024. So again, you are saying that the burden of proof again shifts on the department to prove otherwise. That it was a mistake, that also department has to prove, or they have to prove that the order was communicated in 2023.
so I think in this case, the primary burden of proof, because assessee has already given one date. So if assessee is changing that date,
Hmm.
the primary burden of proof first comes on assessee only
Right.
to say that the 2003 was a wrong date. It was mentioned incorrectly. Correct date is 2024. In
Hmm.
that case, the first burden of proof should lie on assessee. And once assessee has discharged in burden, then again it will go back onto the department to prove that assessee actually received the order earlier only.
Right. Any other participant over here who has any other view or would like to add something to this?
Ayush, I have one point.
Yes.
Uh, First is when we talk about APL 01, so is there any mandate that I'll have to prepare a manual APL 01 and fill the details? In my understanding, no. APL 01 is filled online.
Hmm.
In the portal, there is no option to change the communication date. Portal will show the date of order as the date of communication, if I'm correct. And
Okay.
portal specifically displays that it is time barred even after 1 month. So you do you still want to file? If we are agreeing to that,
Hmm.
will it anyway amount that that this is acceptance? First thing, and secondly, if I remember a bit of Bambino, that does not talk about APL 01. That says whatever the assessee declares as the date of
Correct.
communication.
Correct.
So
Correct.
can I say even in the APL 01 I have mentioned communication date as, even if although it is accepted by me, I have not mentioned it. APL 01 did not show me the option to change it. So I accepted it what it was showing.
I
But
just
what
one point to it. Sorry to interrupt, Gopal. Just one point. I agree with this, but in this case, condonation of delay was also filed with the first
nee,
appellate
nee, nee,
authority.
I'm coming to that. So
Ah.
a condonation, we can say that I was not aware that whether how do we read the communication, because as an assessee, when I was not able to understand the GST portal itself,
Hmm.
then law is very difficult thing for me to understand the difference between communication and date of order. I, as an assessee, was of the view that whatever is the date of order, that is the date of communication. So I was not aware of that. मेरे से गलती हो गई. Now I am filing the appeal before the appellate authority or the tribunal. So I want to plead that I was not aware of the order. So can we say that because portal is not giving me the option to change the date of communication?
So, see, that is not the only place where you can give information. You are attaching the complete appeal form. So if the
Right.
order is not allowing you to edit a date, you can mention all that in your appeal. That as per me, the the date of communication of appeal is this. The portal is not allowing me to edit the date. I have only clicked on that proceed button, which says that it is after the condonation period is after 1 month. Do you wish to proceed? I have only done that because there is a limitation on GST portal. GST portal is working on a presumption that date of uploading of order is same as the date of communication of order, which is an incorrect presumption, which is established in established jurisprudence also uh, after these catena of judgments in Allahabad High Court. So that is an incorrect presumption done taken by GST portal. I do not agree with that presumption. I only clicked on proceed because I wanted to file an online appeal because your department will not accept offline appeal also. So that is also a
Right.
legal mandate by GST department that you have to file appeal online only. Otherwise, I would have filled an offline appeal form and applied offline appeal. But that is also not accepted by the GST department. So there is no option with the assessee except to file an online appeal. So if you mention all these in your appeal, then I think that merely clicking on proceed button will not have any adverse effect against the assessee.
मोहित, आई एम विथ यू ओनली, व्हाट दैट्स व्हाट आई एम सेइंग कि अगर मेरी एपीएल 01 में डेट ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन कुछ और आ भी रही है, मैंने अगर मैनुअल, लेट्स से आई हैव प्रिपेयर्ड एन अपील, उसमें मैंने मैनुअल एपीएल 01 बनाया, उसमें मैंने लिखा कि डेट ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन इज द सेम एज द डेट ऑफ ऑर्डर, बट इन द प्लीडिंग्स आई हैव मेंशन्ड दैट आई वाज नॉट अवेयर ऑफ दिस, आई गॉट टू, सो विल दैट नॉट इनडायरेक्टली मीन कि मैं कम्युनिकेशन डेट कुछ और बताना चाह रहा हूँ, बिकॉज आई एम एक्सप्लेनिंग द डिले दैट इटसेल्फ इज कि मुझे पता नहीं था ऑर्डर के बारे में।
So in my view, all of because these are very, very specific legal questions.
करेक्ट।
Because when department goes to you go to High Court, what High Court will see that you have an order dated 2023. You filed an appeal in 2026. Department has rejected the appeal, and now you have either gone to tribunal or gone to High Court or wherever. So the fact pattern should be very clear from your side. So you have to be very, very clear in your appeal that date of communication of order as per assessee is this. So that not only means that preparing that manual form, so that should be there. But in my view, there should be a separate para in your pleadings dedicated to date of communication only. Because otherwise, we will go back to that same dispute that in GST portal form, date of communication was 2023. You indirectly accepted that. In your manual form, you wrote 2026. So there is a contradictory statements given by SSE. That is what the department is going to argue. So as a SSE, it is always better that you have a separate ground in your pleadings and explain everything that I only did accepted on GST portal because there is no other option.
This is when I'm aware of all the judgments and the provisions. That's, as I said, when I'm not aware of the provisions and the judgments like these, and I just agree what the portal is saying to me, then I think we all are on the same line. That obviously the better recourse is that I take the pleadings in the first appellate stage only, that whatever the date is AP01 is auto populating is not correct. But even if it is not the case, then what Gopal is saying, that even the condonation itself suggests that the date of communication
कम्युनिकेशन
of
और
order was something else, because in the condonation I've clearly written there was a rift among the directors, and then as and when I downloaded from the portal I filed an appeal. So condonation in itself suggests that the date of effective communication was order was late. Correct. Mohit, you have any other judgment to discuss?
No.
I have other view. I can share.
Yes, Govindaji, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have filed the appeal maybe before 25 to 30 days before same issue. I my my client GST registration is cancelled. After 3 years, he uploaded the SEN and he passed the order ex parte. The SSC already gone in another state. He is unaware about the notice. Then now file the appeal regarding. Then within a week before, I have personal hearing with officer. He said I have no power about this. Sir, I tell him, okay, sir, this is not a time bar appeal. But he said I have no any power. उसके पास power था कि भाई ये केस ले सके ये बारे में, तो उन्होंने बोला आपको अपीलेट ट्रिब्यूनल में ही जाना पड़ेगा। और मैंने ऐसा भी सुना है कि अपीलेट ट्रिब्यूनल के पास भी ये पावर नहीं है जो इसका केस सुन पाए, ऐसा, इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग।
Mohit, I did not listen to the question because I was disconnected for a few minutes.
So again, as far as what the officer decides that he does not have the power to listen to the case, that is opinion of the officer. That is
Yes,
up to
yes.
the officer. He has the right to pass whatever order he wants. As assessee, we have the right to appeal up to Supreme Court. So those
Yeah,
are
yeah.
our legal rights and officer legal rights. Coming to the
Correct.
second question, whether tribunal has the power to listen to these cases. So, in my view, again, in time barred appeal, there are broadly two different propositions. One is
Okay.
we say that date of communication was continuing the example which we were discussing. So, if we say that date of communication was 2023 only, appeal was filed in 2026, and there is a delay of 3 years,
Yes.
and you want to get the delay condoned, then tribunal does not have the power to condone that delay because tribunal is
Yes.
statutory body. So if
Yes.
GST law has given 1 month condonation, tribunal also cannot override it. That power only rests with the High Court and Supreme Court as per Article 226 and Article 32. But if your proposition is that you did not know about the order, therefore the date of communication is also 2026 and you have filed within the time limit as per your proposed date of communication, then I think that is a matter of interpretation. So that
Yes.
tribunal is within its power to decide on this interpretational issue because if and again this is a question of fact also. So I would rather say that tribunal is the only body which can decide because high court you should only go when there is a question of law. For question of fact, tribunal is the final fact finding authority. So, to confirm this fact that the date of communication is 2026, tribunal is very well equipped legally. They are allowed to determine the date of communication. And if the tribunal finds that in your favor that the date of communication is 2026, then they can remand back the case to the officer for adjudication on merits. No, for appeal on merits. Sorry, not adjudication.
Okay. Okay. My client know after the fringe of the bank account. So otherwise he don't know about it.
However,
So,
that falls within that broad lines of the judgments discussed by Ayush, that merely
Mhm.
uploading on GST portal is not communication. So if SSC did not open the GST portal and they got to know through some other means, either they opened the GST portal later on, or they got to know through some third party, like getting a letter from the bank saying your bank account is frozen. So that same principles of those judgments should apply.
Okay. 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 और दूसरा मेरा पॉइंट कहने का ये था कि ऊपर डेट ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन है ना, हमको चेंज करने दे रहा है, तो वो हिसाब से मैंने चेंज किया था उसमें।
ऑनलाइन जीएसटी पोर्टल पे APL 01 में।
हाँ हाँ, अपन जब एपीएल फाइल करते हैं ना, तब अपन को डेट ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन है ना चेंज करने देता है। फिर मैंने करंट ईयर का डाल दिया। एक्चुअली दूसरा मेरा ये पॉइंट कहने का था सर, अगर हम करेंगे तो वो चेंज करने देता है ऊपर।
Well, okay, then it is very good if the portal allows you put the current date. And as I mentioned earlier, you should, in your pleadings also, you should have a separate para for this, explaining all these things that you only date of communication is 2000 current date only as per, and the reason for it that should be discussed separately in a separate para in your pleadings.
ओके, थैंक यू।
I think we can take some queries, one or two queries now if
But I think we have that advisory also, which we
yes, we have some advisories to discuss. There were two advisories this week, one on e-way bill and another one on Annexure B of refund. Okay, then, you want us to discuss, Mohit? We can discuss that also, I think.
I think maybe we can quickly discuss because it's, I think, 7, 8 minutes are there. So let us quickly discuss and then if there are any queries, we can take up.
Fine, I'll just discuss this Annexure B related to refund. Quickly, I'll discuss is there's a new facility has been introduced by the department related to refunds. So earlier, what we used to do is an NHB was prepared offline on our system on any Excel. We used to convert it in PDF and upload it on the GST portal, that Annexure B, which is related to refunds or the inverted duty structure refund when we used to claim it. Now they have a separate utility for Annexure B that we have to download our system, fill in the details in that utility, create a JSON, and the JSON has to be uploaded on the portal as that Annexure B. Now, what is the relevance of that Annexure B is First, we used to upload Annexure B invoice wise. Annexure B is always the details of the ITC that we have taken, capturing the HSN, SSC, and the input services capital goods details along with taxable amount, taxable value, tax, etc., etc. Annexure B will also capture all those details. That offline utility will also capture all those details. What they have done is they will validate that invoice details from your GSTR to B, and will say, and in that JSON only that error will come, that valid document or invalid document. So if you upload any invoice that is not coming in your GSTR to B, while uploading JSON, you will get an error, invalid documents. GSTR 2B Reco, they have made it, they automatized it at the portal level only. And if there is any mismatch, so now what we have to do is we have to be very careful while filing invoice number, while filing GST number, party name, etc. Because any particular mismatch, even a dash or hyphen mistake, hyphen dash or slash mistake, can lead to a mismatch in the invoice number and mismatch between 2B and your invoice that you have uploaded in Annexure B. Another important aspect on another change in Annexure B is that you have to also include the reversal details. The reversals you have made under section 38, reversals you have made under section 42, and reversals you have made under section 43 are also to be included, or to be, they have to be reflected in Annexure B only, for the department to know that how much the reversals you have made. Now there are other important other points also that are very procedural, that if any invoice contains more than 2 3 line items and having separate HSN, separate SSC, input into service capital goods, and yes, obviously you have to fill that line item wise. Each utility can take 10,000 line items, and up to 25 Annexure B utilities you can upload at a single time. So 250,000 line items can be uploaded in a single given application. If you have more than 250,000 line items, then you can again go to the backward format, and after that 250,000 you can prepare an Annexure B offline in your Excel and upload a PDF of it. So I think this was related to this refund only. There was nothing more particular in this. Then I think there was one advisory related to e-way also. Let me just see. Let us also discuss that very no. So basically, as per this advisory, there are two changes that are made in the e-way bill portal. Two basic facilities has been introduced. First is that now GST number will be compulsorily required to be written under bill to ship to category for the persons under the ship to category. So whenever if you are selecting a bill to ship to category, what used to happen is the mandatory field for GSTN was under bill to only. There was no mandatory field for GSTN under ship to category. Now that GSTN category under ship to GSTN field under ship to category is also mandatory, and in case the ship to person is unregistered, you have to write URP. So GSTIN has to be compulsorily mentioned under the ship to category. Second is related to, there is a closure of e-way bill facility has been introduced on the portal. So this e-way bill can be closed after the movement has been terminated, that the goods has reached its destination, and it can be closed by the supplier, by the receiver, by the transporter, or any other third party as well. So how the supplier or receiver or the recipient or the transporter will close the e-way bill is on the basis is on by simply logging into their portal. They can close the e-way bill by the e-way bill number or by the date of generation. They can simply go and close the e-way bill. That facility is now available on the GST on the e-way bill portal. But how any other third party will close the e-way bill? At the time of generation of e-way bill, now they will ask you for a person, one mobile number, one authorized mobile number. When you will fill that mobile number, that person can close the e-way bill on the basis of that mobile number. So if I'm preparing an e-way bill, the e-way bill portal will ask for a mobile number of any authorized person who is authorized to close the e-way bill. If I fill in that mobile number, that person by simply put will by logging in through OTP by his mobile number can close that e-way bill after the movement of the goods has been terminated. So this was the two advisories this week that were issued by the department. I think there are no other thing to discuss.
Sir, what will happen if some e-way bill is not closed by mistake or by
So right
forgetting the
now,
things?
this is voluntarily. It is not compulsory to close the e-way bill. It is completely voluntary right now. Let's see if they make it mandatory in the coming years or months. Right now, nothing will happen if you do not close it.
One thing we all we should all keep in mind is this inexorable facility. So as we have seen in past almost 10 years now since the introduction of GST, whenever any new tool, new utility is introduced by government, there is a learning curve as well. Lot many nitty-gritties we have to learn, and a lot of technical glitches are also there. So, and an Excel B being the line item level invoice data of your all inward supplies, that is going to be a very Herculean task. So you should, if anyone is filing any of these category of refund, so export without payment, SEZ without payment, inverted duty, so have sufficient time in your hand for preparing these details, and have sufficient margin also, because a lot of time we have seen that someone starts filing, 2 years are expiring, 1 month before they start the filing work, and then either because of this technical issue they are not able to fill within time, or if they file then deficiency memo is issued, then ultimately that time limit lapses. So have sufficient margin to fill these utility, because it is going to create a lot of nuisances, especially in at least the start 4 to 6 months. It is going to create a lot of problems for all the businesses to fill up this utility.
Any
I
queries
think
that
we
we can?
can. Hmm. So, sorry, Ayush, you were saying?
I'm saying if there is any query, then we can discuss or we can wrap up the session.
Any query of any participants?
Ayush, something in chat box.
Yeah, there's one Darshil Agarwal is asking any thought why this closure option has been introduced in e-way bill system. Maybe to track that the movement has been finally terminated. Maybe they want to keep a record that as when the goods has reached. Uh, I cannot comprehend whether if the e-way bill because there can be any fraud or anything that like that. What do you have any? Can you comprehend anything why this has been introduced?
So I think fraud angle, if we see, so maybe not on a micro economic level, but on a macroeconomic level, because that IT system government is working, they are making it so robust. So let's say
Hmm.
you started a movement. I one day after later on I closed the movement on GST portal.
Hmm.
So then the government knows that this particular truck movement has been closed.
Correct.
So maybe later on they have that IT system in place wherein there should be simultaneously a truck number or a conveyance number should not be in movement in two or more e-way bills. So those
Hmm.
kind of checks can be implemented if this type of system is in place. Because currently you cannot implement the system, because it is possible that you generated a e-way bill, validity is 5 days, the movement got completed in 3 days, and that truck was
Hmm.
deployed elsewhere. So unless and until you
Correct.
have the option to tell that the movement has been completed, it is going to create in a lot of issues. So maybe that can be one of the angles. We don't know what is the actual purpose, but I think that can be one of the reasons. As far as on assessee level investigation, and I don't think it is going to have any impact, because the same allegation which department has today also, that e-way bill is not proof of movement. You can generate
Hmm.
e-way bill even if there is no movement. Same allegation department can raise even after the introduction of this option. That same way you generated a fake e-way bill, same way it has been closed without any
Hmm.
actual movement. So on assessee level, I don't think it is going to help anyone. As a assessee, it is not going to help you in defending your case if any fake billing cases, uh, fake billing cases brought against you by the department.
और मेरे ख्याल से
Thank you.
ग्रेजुअली एप्लीकेबल कर देंगे, अभी वॉलेंटरी है ना, जैसे ई इनवॉइस है ना, वो बेस पे एप्लीकेबल कर देंगे लोग।
So that is a possibility. So even with e-invoice, when it was introduced, there was a lot of discussion that in future maybe e-invoice limit will be reduced to zero. So basically, it will be made mandatory for everyone. So maybe it is part of a long-term plan. So we'll have to wait and see.
Fine, I think we can close the session now.
So thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and expect to see you again next week as well.
Thank you, everyone.